All right, welcome to Freedom Friday. Yes, it's a Monday. Don't care. Love it. Looks like Facebook is having a cry at me, but that's all right. I'll deal with that later. So I'm in Harlong. We've got Dan Worthington in Utah. We've got Derek in an undisclosed location in the Great Southern Land that the British called us, the penal colony, which is about to get even more restrictive than in 1885. So today, a couple of reasons we're going live on a Monday instead of delaying it until Friday. It's just the news cycles are going that absolute batshit crazy across the world at the moment that we thought we had to do it now. Obviously, Edge Radio Australia, we're having a blast, and the boss is calling me, so I'm going to hang up on him. So what it is, we want to talk all things Trump and America. So Dan, I'm going to throw it over straight to you. Welcome to the show. What's the biggest piece of news that has come through in the last probably about 48 hours?
Well, there's a couple things, really. First of all, the Supreme Court has decided, the majority of the Supreme Court has decided that these district court judges don't have the authority to issue national injunctions. Their injunctions are specific to the individuals that have applied for them, and so they're not universal. It oversteps the authority given to the district courts by Congress, according to the Supreme Court, and this limits significantly the kind of crap that the Democrats can use the judiciary for, which they've been doing, because they don't have control of either house of the Congress. So now they're trying to attack Trump's policies via the courts, which is unacceptable. Of course, we've got the follow-up with respect to Iran and Israel, and they're still tiffing at each other a little bit. We'll see how long Trump puts up with that. I think Israel wants regime change. I can certainly understand why they would, to get the mullahs out of control and to get a more democratic society that's friendly to Israel. Certainly going to be in the best interest of the Iranian people to be able to get the restrictions off their trade and get into a free market society and that kind of thing. I guess they assassinated enough of the extremists, extreme leadership, that it might have a fighting chance of doing that. We'll just see what happens there. With respect to the immigration issue, it continues to move forward. I think in a way the news cycle has moved beyond immigration to a point. I think Trump is softening a bit on employment for farms and tech, that kind of thing. So we'll see how that goes. I think to some extent we've always been dependent upon immigration for jobs in the United States. It's just that we wanted it to be legal and not illegal immigration.
They're going to have due process.
Yeah, that's right. Well, no, they don't need due process. They're not citizens. They have no rights. They're there illegally. They violate the law. They need to go unless the government grants them some sort of exception. And so,
sorry, when I said due process, they need to follow the process to get the visas into the country, not just
no. Otherwise, they shouldn't have any substantive or procedural rights because they're not citizens. They're legally. They violated the law to get there.
They're criminals.
So, they're criminals. So you want to follow the rules, and like everybody else does. And we have great opportunities in America. If you want to come in legally, if you want to try to come in illegally, it's a crapshoot, and you have to take your chances. You might get exempted under a program or two if the federal government sees it's in their best interest. But it's not in their best interest to load up the Medicaid rolls and the welfare rolls with a bunch of illegal immigrants, costing the American people billions of dollars every year, and not taking care of our veterans and others who have earned the right to have the kinds of support that they need. Then they're not getting it because the budget dollars are being used to fund illegals. and to fund democratic state policies that are anti-American. So, for that.
So
Go ahead.
Yeah, so what I'd like to expand on that one, like it's just every time something new is coming out of America. So, like I said, I think the big one is the Supreme Court ruling for Trump, where they've made the ruling that a district court judge cannot make a countrywide ruling. So, I wanted, just for the people listening at home who haven't actually been following this, there's been the judge that tried to block the deportation of illegals to Ecuador, the judge who is saying that birthright citizenship can be removed. There's a whole heap of them, even trying to go so far as to literally block the executive's authority within America. So, Dan, what are some of the biggest rulings that's been, like, people are talking about at the moment in America that this is going to overturn?
Well, that affects all of them, all the district court judge rulings that have been essentially trying to create a national injunction, because the district court judges don't have the authority to do that. And so now, in light of that, district courts have to go back and modify their decrees to fit with the Supreme Court rulings in order for them to be legal. Otherwise, the administration can basically thumb their nose at them, or worse. So, there is that. There's been progress in the military command structure to make the American forces more robust and, as they would say, deadly.
Oh, they have to be.
Yeah, no. So they're getting rid of all the trans troops and that kind of thing. Fruity and Tooty are going out the door because it really affects the morale and the readiness of the troops who fight to defend the country and to, other than so they still use real women to do what real women need to do in the military, but not fake ones, I guess. Anyway, so that's important.
More to the point on that, Dan. I mean, I think the recent strike on Iran, in terms of just military precision, demonstrated the level of competency that the Defense Force needs. In terms of, I mean, those guys flew 38 hours or something like that. It was crazy, and then they had to refuel in the air.
Twice.
For those who and for those who don't really appreciate what that means, is they don't do it when they don't have visual in those actual bombers when they're doing it. It's all connected. So you can imagine, flying that many hours between two pilots sharing the role, one getting a sleep at the back, adrenaline's probably pumping because they're on a mission. They've got a little microwave out the back to do some 2-minute noodles or whatever to keep them going, get some sustenance. They're there and it's no contact. I mean, they're flying. They can't just radio in. They're having to fly in silence. I mean, can you imagine trying to put a pinpoint as to where that fueling dock is? So many factors can go wrong, especially if you're flying in the dark. I mean, this is the level of precision that the military operate in. Now, I'm not saying this to glorify war or anything. It's just, this is what modern warfare, and the skill level to do that is incredible. I mean, just to even get a pilot's license is a really big deal.
So,
all right? So I'm just trying to put it to a civilian
lining up those KC-135s is amazing. Yeah.
It's extraordinary. So my point is this: the military don't need distractions. They have to stay in a state of readiness.
No question.
So, political grandiose idealism and that is just not, there's no space for that. There's no room for that in the military. They always, as I said, have to stay in a state of readiness.
No, there's no margin for it. Plus, the military, it affects morale because of morality, really. I mean, the whole idea is that officers and enlisted people in the United States of the armed services are supposed to represent not only a code of military ethics, but a code of moral ethics. They're supposed to be above and beyond reproach. And if they're compromised in any way, it creates inroads to foreign powers to do create issues that are national security related. So there's no reason for us to be able to. Okay, so enrollments among the troops and recruitment are up dramatically. They're meeting their targets. People, the real patriots aren't afraid to join the military anymore. They're anxious to join the military because they haven't got Fruity Tooty at the head of as commander in chief anymore, and his wing fairies. And so, you got real men running it again. And, not that there's anything against women. There are some fantastic fighter pilots and other things that are women who've dedicated their lives to the training and everything. But, again, they're a cut of the above. They're not, they're 1 in a million. They're not, standard issue. So that's kind of the way I look at the whole thing, is that, these people are elite. They're not, they're just the elite of the elite, right? And they've got to be that way.
So just going back to that court ruling, and for people to understand why is this related, after the bombing, the Democrats were trying to impeach Trump for using his executive power as the commander-in-chief in America. So they're saying that he never went through Congress. They never got approvals for any of that. He is the commander-in-chief. He has the full authority to do what he's done. And a prime example, Obama, I think he dropped something like 150,000 missile strikes without congressional approval. No problems there, not a problem at all. But now district judges are saying, hey, he hasn't gone through Congress. He doesn't have the authority to use the military in that way. He's not allowed to do it. Let's impeach him. So this ruling has effectively just pulled the rug out from underneath the Democrats, said, no, he is the commander-in-chief. He is in charge of the executive. He has the authority to issue nationwide policies, including military action.
Do you blame him for not notifying the Democrats? I mean, talk about security threat. The Democrats are the biggest security threat to our national security because they open their big mouths. I mean, look what happened. Even after the bombing, there was a leak among the CIA and their people. Yeah, because until you get rid of all the rats and excise all the Democratic traitors that are serving in the government, you're going to have this kind of thing happening. And they put party over country, which is wrong. They should not do that.
So I think the nuclear strike was not nuclear strike. The missile strike on the nuclear sites was an absolute masterful. He did it so well. The military should be commended. The pilots that did and it's not just the B-2 bombers as well. There was over 125 planes or aircraft that were involved in that operation. It wasn't like, hey, here's 7 planes, go knock out that nuclear site. It was a huge military operation.
You know why Trump was able to eradicate ISIS in his first term?
Oh, the Moab, wasn't it?
There was that, plus the fact that he didn't have embedded reporters, and everything was kept classified. So nobody knew what the military, you didn't broadcast what the military was going to do. Exactly. And so you had effective military operations instead of Mickey Mouse Club, like, Biden and the Democrats do, because they get paid off, and, they're just not, they're not loyal Americans. They go to the highest bidder, the Democrats do. And we see that in their coffers and everything else, right?
So again, it goes back down to Trump needs the ability to operate independently as a US president, like all the other previous presidents before him. This Supreme Court ruling has now given him a black and white instruction what he can and can't do. There's no more gray area for district judges to get involved. So they've just been told, get out, leave him alone. And I think this is a huge win for America and the safety of the American people as a whole. And
even on immigration, look what Obama did. He evicted 2 million immigrants, illegal immigrants, and there was not a peep, right? So Trump tries to do the same thing, and the Democrats try to block him. Why? Because of the drug cartel money. That's why.
So going even further, so allowing ICE to operate nationwide, the district judges now can't block ICE from doing what they need to do. This has removed the authority from sanctuary cities to turn around and say, no, we're allowed to ignore federal laws. So this has a much further reach than what I think a lot of people actually understand. So for the Trump administration, besides their amazing work on the borders, I think this is going to be one of the biggest rulings that they've actually succeeded in getting through court. And it goes even further now internationally as well, because we've got Trump continuing his tariffs on the UK because they refuse to remove their freedom of speech laws, their social media laws and everything like that. And then he also comes into, and I'm going to use this as a tangent, into Australia, the AUKUS deal between Australia, the UK and the United States with the submarines. He now, like the district court judges, can't block him on doing any of these negotiations as well. So I'm actually going to throw this one to you, Derek, because you're the one that raised this with us. There's now a bit of turbulent waters, get it? Because submarines, turbulent waters, between the AUKUS deal. So fire away. Give us an update.
Well, a bit of background. Australia reneged on a deal with France to provide submarines for its fleet. And
$10 billion.
Yeah. The French were, of course, not happy with that. Under the Biden administration, they did a deal where they would get a number of submarines from the United States that were nuclear powered and go that route. Things are coming into question now because the Defense Secretary for the United States has told the Australian government, you need to up the budget big time on your own defense. And you see this as a bit of a foreign policy ruling from the United States across the board, even to NATO, European Union. We're not going to be there for every fight. You guys need to come to the table and have your own spending on the military bill rather than just rely on us to always fight your battles for you. And so that is putting Australia in a bit of a quandary because we have had reports of Chinese ships circulating around Australia, not to mention the port in Darwin, which has a 99-year lease to the Chinese companies to allow them to access that territory on our land, on our northern tip. Very strategic position as far as the Indian and Pacific Ocean is concerned up there. And of course, this is all starting to bite Australian politicians in the backside now because suddenly the greatest ally, is saying you need to double your spending on what you are doing in relation to defence. And Australia's in this transition type period where some of its fleet, particularly in the Navy, is very, very old and needs to be replaced. So it's in this kind of quandary of what do we do now? Where do we go from here? Do we up our spending and get that fleet going? Or, you're seeing many, many trips from Australian politicians going over back to China to have a chat to them when our own Prime Minister can't get a meeting with Donald Trump, can't even get a phone call with Donald Trump. So it's putting egg on their faces. Albanese is not looking very strong on the world stage. And where does Australia go from here? Is it going to push Australia to a point where they have to make a decision in terms of loyalty and who they want to ally themselves with? That's really coming to the forefront as far as what's going on behind the scenes.
You guys have to be careful because you don't want to be singing this song. We are Chinese, if you please.
That reminds me of the Monty Python song. I like China.
Exactly. Albanese will sell you out faster than anybody because he's such a traitor and a tyrant.
Have a look at Penny Wong, what is she? The foreign minister of foreign affairs. So she is Chinese descendancy, openly supportive of Chinese policies over Australian policies. We have Kevin Rudd, who's, again, another one who's our diplomat to US, fluent in Mandarin, has openly brokered numerous deals between the Chinese and Australia, have really pushed the pro-China regime, even going all the way back to like Paul Keating, Bob Hawke. There was ties there as well with the Chinese government. The amount of influence that the CCP has within, Chinese Communist Party, that they have within Australia is insane. I saw a report. I didn't get a chance to read the whole entire thing, but they were saying that over 65% of Australian farmland is actually owned by either state-owned or a private entity that is directly controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. Then there's also I think it's the Meriden airfield or the Tujay airfield, which is It's a town just about 2 hours away from Perth, which is actually owned by the CCP. So there's actually airfields within Australia, within like striking distance of one of our capital cities, that is owned, controlled, and operated by the CCP.
You're so screwed.
I'm as someone who has run as a political candidate, who has been heavily involved in the politics side of things, I'm deeply concerned about our ties to China. I think we need to really strengthen our relationship with America. I do not want to be saluting the Chinese flag at any point. And just when Derek was talking about the warships, there was so one warship, 2 support crew boats that went with them around all of Australia. And when they were off the east coast of WA, they were actually doing a live fire exercise in Australian waters, and was identified by a Virgin airline, like a passenger vehicle, like plane, as it was going over. They heard the radar going live, live fire, and they very rapidly got the hell out of there. And the Australian government didn't know about it until a commercial flight told them about it. Like this just shows the level of incompetence from Anthony Albanese. Now, just going on to the Trump side of things, guess who did manage to get a meeting with Trump during the NATO summit? The Liberal Senator Alex Antic was able to get a meeting and a photo op with Trump, even though Albanese was not able to. So I think that shows how weak Albanese is actually as an Australian Prime Minister.
You guys need to change your system.
Well, it shows the strong stand the United States is having on freedom of speech. And when you've got the Prime Minister, even this morning I've seen footage of him going on about how we need to impose age restrictions as far as access to the internet is concerned. We all know that's a Trojan horse. We all know that it's actually wanting to track what Australian citizens are looking at online, what they're able to access online, is another gateway to freedom of information. And that, I mean, is one, leading to censorship, 2, freedom of expression. And of course, when you've got these kind of policies on the table and they're making, these big issues over them, it's not aligned with the Trump administration agenda. And they're like, sorry, you can go to the back of the line.
It wasn't even in line with the original Australian Constitution as well. So like I more and more since I've left Australia, I'm seeing Australia become more and more China, like just the 51st state of China, or the 51st province of China. At what point, and this is where I'm really, really disgusted with Australians, at what point do we need to just say, nah, enough's enough, and we just mass exodus Australia to somewhere else? Because they're not listening to the voters. They only won with like 33% of the vote. A majority of people don't want Labor as a government, but we're stuck with them anyway. Like, at what point do we actually have to have a revolution?
Well, that's one of the biggest differences between the United States and, of course, Australia, is Americans are very much in self-governance because they did have a revolution. Now, I'm not saying Australia should. I'm not advocating that, but you can see the difference in terms of the psychological approach. When it comes to these kind of issues, Americans will fight to the end for their rights and their freedoms, whereas Australians are far more passive and go, oh, she'll be right, mate. She'll be right, mate.
So I'm just...
Where's the Australian military in all this? You'd think you'd have a few courageous folks in the military who actually love freedom and honor that. Are they a bunch of cowards too?
No, they put them up for war crimes. So
is that it? Yeah.
Okay. So even the police officers who stood up against the mandates, all of a sudden they get fired, and a whole heap of other stuff happened. I'm trying to remember, Derek, who was the SAS soldier who got nailed? They tried to nail for war crimes. He eventually won.
I know.
ABC did a hit job on him. Anyway, yeah. So they nail them for. So an example in WA, there's a guy called. He's a member of Parliament, Andrew Hasey, for the Liberal Party. He was a commander of the SAS. There was a news article report came out called the Afghan Files. They were talking about what the SAS was doing during the attacks on Afghanistan. So he followed the rule book to the letter, did absolutely everything right. I've actually read the Afghan Files inside out. He did absolutely nothing wrong, but there was a big, massive inquiry into it, debacles. Like it hit the news cycle for about 6 months just as a hit piece on Andrew Hasey because he was the commander of the SAS. Even the military's lawyers at the time also said their behaviours were in line with the rules of engagement. But yet they still ran the articles, they still attacked him, still released all these classified information, which they should never have been released in the first place. And the Labor government did absolutely nothing about it because it was a Liberal member of Parliament. So even if they are speaking out, even if they are saying how terrible things are, the bad stuff that's happening, they're just spinning it into an attack on them instead. So it's getting to the point where the people who would stand up for the Australians' freedoms in the military or in the police, the firefighters and all that sort of stuff, they just get removed. They get kicked out, and then they're obviously with all their gun laws in Australia, they can't defend themselves. They can't defend themselves in the media because it's owned by the Labor government, and then they can't do anything alternative-wise. There's just no avenues for them. So I think this is one of the reasons why.
Sounds like America needs to send troops on the ground and clean your government out.
I personally, I would actually be supportive of that. I'm absolutely dedicated to having Australia become the 51st state of America. I cannot wait for that to happen. So putting my money where my mouth is, yes, our final goal is to relocate to America. We've already started the process for that. That's not the reason why we're in Halong at the moment. But Australia is just a lost country.
I feel bad for him.
Like it's so bad. It's really, really bad. So anyway, it is what it is. Again, I have to give credit to Warren Black, who unfortunately had a family tragedy. But his Global Wealth Club, the amount of information they taught us and how to actually do what I'm doing was absolutely phenomenal. I'm giving a bit of a free shout out for this one. His knowledge is insane. He's been able to give me the power and authority over my own life to be able to do what we're doing. So yeah, I think people need to take responsibility for their own lives, and that's what we're doing.
Look, I will say this. I was very, very delighted on the weekend when I came across two individuals, two separate families. One of them I would describe as left-leaning in terms of their views, conservative but left-leaning, if you can be such a thing. And they were starting to wake up as to what's actually been going on in the world. Had a long conversation. He said, he says his comments were, I don't like Trump, but I'm looking at what he's doing and it's starting to make sense. It actually is good for America, what they're doing, and all the tariffs, I can see why. He said, I look around me in terms of cars and I go, well, how many US cars do we actually have imported into Australia? We have all the BMWs, we have all the Asian vehicles. I said, we probably have Tesla. That's it. He says, yeah, okay, Tesla. But other than that, what else do we have from the United States? I said, yep, that's part of the problem. And the tariffs that are put on US automobile makers is massive when they come over to Australia. So, and then I went to another house, drop off one of my children and all that. I would describe them as very, very conservative. For the first time, they openly discussed stuff that was going on in relation to world affairs. And I'd always tested them before to see if they'd go there. You know how you kind of see, are they there yet or not? And it always had been held at arm's length. This time they were telling me some details that I wasn't aware of, right? It was just like, wow, they're all over the whole the Iran situation. And I walked away and I said to my wife, there is hope for Australia. People are starting to wake up, and it's been slow, but I was very, very encouraged from what I saw on the weekend. Like people who I did not consider, I thought they're just going to bury their head in the sand, are actually coming around once they start digging further for that information.
I think another 4 years of pain. Another 4 years of pain, and then it will start changing, but not in the immediate future.
They're seeing the strength of Trump, the example of Trump, and the fact that Trump isn't as crazy and abrasive as he was in his prior administration, because he's better managed, and he's making positive impacts for the world.
Well, not just that, but you see, there's a lot of South Africans in Australia. They saw what's happened when, of course, the South African president was in the Oval Office and what happened there. We've just seen over the weekend. It's ironic. 7 days ago, we were talking about the strike in Iran, and today we're looking and witnessing the peace deal that's been happened between Rwanda and Congo.
Right.
This is a battle that's gone on for such long, and there is Trump in the center of it, having negotiated, and both parties are really happy and beaming and getting a great result. So you cannot accuse the man of being a warmongering type president. He's actually settling conflicts that have raged on for years in about 3 different parts of the world,
Right.
like Pakistan and India. And of course, there's the ongoing work with Israel and Iran, not to mention the ongoing work with Ukraine and Russia. He is trying to get peace for this world and do deals. So I think migrants, particularly, who still have contacts with people in their homelands, are hearing this information come through, and it kind of trickles through the communities that way here in Australia.
That's nice.
So anyway, guys, we've now just ticked over half an hour, so I'm going to wrap this one up for today. Final thoughts, Dan. I'm going to throw to you first.
No, I just people of the world who believe in freedom and the battle for truth. Be of good cheer. Stand up. Be counted. Seek out. You've got friends of liberty around the world who are seeking the same kinds of things. Strengthen your faith in God and seek out to do those things which would build your family and strengthen the ties of your family so that they stay strong and virtuous. And then because if we do that as a world, we can turn the tide against these evil monsters who want to manipulate and control the world because that's what their goal is.
All right, perfect. And Derek, I'll throw it to you for closing comments.
Ask the questions. Ask the questions. Why is this happening? Why would somebody do that? Take time out of your busy schedule to dig around and ask those questions, because the truth is what you were after, and the truth will set you free.
Exactly.
Perfect. So this has been Freedom Fridays, our Edge Radio Australia. Also, we've got some big news coming up on the 4th of July. So as far as I understand, that's still on schedule. So that's going to be super, super exciting. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this one up. My name is Travis Carter. We've had Dan Worthington all the way from America, and we've got Derek Whitaker all the way in Australia. So this has been Freedom Friday on Monday, the 30th of the 6th. Thanks for coming in, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.